Breaking news coming in. The Supreme Court has directed the CBI Director Ranjit Sinha to not interfere in the 2G scam case. Atir Khan joining us on the phone line with more. Atir, a very, very significant development in the entire case.
Well, indeed it is. It's a big setback for the position of CBI Director when the Supreme Apex Court itself directs the CBI Chief to abstain himself from the investigation. Now, you see, they have come from the Supreme Court to this effect, but today it has said in as many words that, that he has been giving information which the court said he would have to substantiate with an affidavit. And now clearly the court has said that the investigation remain independent and it be let be done by the investigating officers, and there's no need for the director to interfere in.
And what exactly did the Supreme Court say? Because we understand that this is not the first time in the day, rather, while they've been hearing the case, that they've wrapped Ranjit Sinha.
Well, that's right. You see, there is a genesis in this case that there were two different divergent views. The prosecution department of the CBI wing had contention, whereas he clearly tried to interfere, and he said that he tried to sort of steer the proceedings, and that is why the court was unhappy. It had expressed its unhappiness also, but now it says that it has clearly said that the CBI director need not interfere in the investigation.
Absolutely. So safe to say, Atir, that the ticking of the CBI, the Supreme Court today, observed that apparently all is not well, and seemingly the allegations made by that NGO against CBI Director Ranjit Sinha has some credibility.
Well, that is the question of inquiry as far as allegations are concerned. But clearly that CBI director naming one of his very senior officers and says that his integrity is doubtful and he's been passing on information to the NGO itself raises question on the functioning of CBI. However, in this case, since the Supreme Court itself is monitoring the investigations, there won't be much of a difference, but it's certainly a setback to the position of CBI director.
Right, I mean, you can actually just shed light for us, Atir, on this the timeline of the case, considering that the Supreme Court, they made their observations about Rastogi, shifting Rastogi from 2G probe was an overreach, and also about the presence of the CBI officers in court.
That's right. CBI pulled up the senior officers who were present there in big strength. They said, why was there a need for them to be present? Why were they acting as a mouthpiece of the CBI director? And they were in fact asked to leave the courtroom and resume their work. So clearly it isn't a good day for CBI. The Supreme Court, it has pulled up officers and has passed adverse remarks against the CBI director himself.
Right, Atir, so what happens there on for the 2G case? What does this mean now for the probe?
So clearly now the public prosecutor's notification has to be issued, and since Lalit has been the former public prosecutor has been has taken over as the judge, now that proceedings will take place, and now the investigations will be directly monitored by the CBI, both in terms of prosecution and investigation.
Absolutely, Atir Khan bringing us that update. Remember, the Supreme Court has directed Ranjit Sinha to recuse himself and not interfere in the 2G probe. This is after, remember, the SC pulled up Ashok Tiwari and in fact pulled up Ranjit Sinha and told Ashok Tiwari that he cannot be Ranjit Sinha's mouthpiece. The Supreme Court, in fact, taking a strong exception to the CBI officers being present in the courtroom and directing them to leave and do their duty in office. The court also not taking well to the presence of a large number of CBI officers in the courtroom, and definitely not taking well to Ranjit Sinha, in fact, naming Rastogi as the mole who was in fact passing on crucial information to Prashant Bhushan. So now the Supreme Court directing Ranjit Sinha to recuse himself and not interfere in the 2G probe. Gaurav Sawant now joining us on the phone line with more. Gaurav, a huge development here with the Supreme Court directing Ranjit Sinha not to interfere in the 2G probe. So obviously the CBI has really ticked off the Supreme Court. What does this mean now for the 2G probe?
This is a major setback for the CBI Director Ranjit Sinha. CBI also came in for severe criticism at the Supreme Court. Ranjit Sinha's stance on 2G spectrum case. This clearly, goes on to indicate where Ranjit Sinha wanted the whistleblower's name. The Supreme Court asked the CBI to concentrate on the probe instead. In fact, in this 2G, the Special Public Prosecutor Anand Grover told the court that the CBI Director was interfering in the 2G case, which is inconsistent with the agency's stand. So this clearly goes on to indicate that CBI itself does not have vote of confidence in its own director, and that is why he's been asked to step aside. And the CBI Director was more interested in knowing who the whistleblower is, who gave out the list of his visitors' guest book details to the court instead of concentrating on the investigation, Sanjana.
Right, Gaurav, we also understand that the Supreme Court did in fact comment on shifting of Rastogi from the 2G probe as an overreach of its order, because the Apex Court also expressed displeasure over the presence of a number of CBI officers in the courtroom about this. If you can actually shed light on that as well, please.
That's right. The Supreme Court asked the CBI officers what were they doing in court. They were not agents of Ranjit Sinha. They should go instead and carry out their investigations. The Supreme Court was very unhappy with the manner in which this case, was progressing. What the CBI prosecutor told the court was, our case in 2G could have been demolished if Sinha's stand had been accepted. So this goes on to indicate that Ranjit Sinha, as CBI Director, was not on the same page as the investigators in this case. The Supreme Court also took exception to CBI's submission that Senior Counsel K.K. Venugopal will no longer represent them in the Spectrum investigation in the case in court. Sanjana.
Gaurav, thank you for bringing us that update. We also have Atir Khan joining us on the phone line. Atir, more than this, Prashant Bhushan in fact telling the Supreme Court that he has never met Rastogi and did not get any document from him.
Well, that's right. As I told you that it is a subject of investigation, and the court has deliberated over this issue, and it is not in the public realm. But clearly, the CBI Director has said with certain conviction that it was one of his officers, a senior DIG level officer, who was passing on information. So as Gaurav was pointing out, it itself raises question on the credibility of the functioning of CBI, especially in terms of 2G investigations. Now that the court is in the know of everything, and it is going to directly supervise both the investigation and look into all the angles, then one can hope that justice will be done in this case.
Atir Khan, thank you for bringing us that update. This is in fact a huge development, as the Supreme Court has directed Ranjit Sinha to recuse himself from the 2G case and has told him not to interfere in the 2G probe. All of this coming as the Supreme Court in fact observed that apparently all is not well, and seemingly the allegations made by the NGO against CBI Director Ranjit Sinha has some credibility. Now let's just go back to Atir Khan, who's been covering the story very closely. Sinha had yesterday told the Apex Court that the DIG rank CBI officer Santosh Rastogi was the mole who passed on certain file notings and documents to the NGO on the basis of which baseless and a false case was filed against him. But the Special Public Prosecutor in the case, Anand Grover, today said that Sinha had interfered in the 2G case, which is completely inconsistent with the agency's stand. Remember, as we have been reporting, Grover said that their case in the 2G could have been demolished if Sinha's stand was accepted. And Kamini Jaiswal, Supreme Court lawyer, is also joining us on the phone line. Ms. Jaiswal, this is a huge development as the Supreme Court has directed Ranjit Sinha to not interfere in the 2G probe, also saying that shifting Rastogi from the 2G probe was an overreach of its order.
Yes, I think it's a very welcome step, and it's in the fitness of things that the institution has been saved from a person like this. The premier investigating agency was under heavy cloud with this head like this, and I think a great service has been done to the institution by protecting it from.
Okay, and how do you see the probe now? The 2G probe
will carry on. The probe will carry on. There are officers. He was just the head of the, and in fact, he was only an obstructionist. So therefore, I think whatever probe remains will carry on fairly.
Kamini Jaiswal, senior Supreme Court lawyer, thank you so much for speaking with Headlines today. Remember, the Supreme Court expressing displeasure over the presence also of a number of CBI officers in the courtroom. Grover telling Supreme Court that their case could have been demolished if Sinha's stand was accepted. And Supreme Court taking strong exception to the CBI officers present in the courtroom, also pulling up Joint Director Ashok Tiwari after he put forward his view on allegations against Sinha, adding that he is not the agent of the CBI Director, so he should not act like his mouthpiece. The CBI, remember, contradicted Sinha's statement made in court yesterday that one of his senior officers is a mole. And Justice R.S. Sodhi now joining us on the phone line with more. Sir, this is a landmark and a crucial development in the case. Allegations against CBI Chief Ranjit Sinha has some credibility, the Supreme Court has said, and has now directed Ranjit Sinha to not interfere in the 2G probe.
See, this just means that Mr. Sinha's credibility is pretty low in the eyes of the Supreme Court, and that he has been directed to give away totally obviously shows that to some extent the allegations which were made against him are sticking. I should think the Supreme Court has been quite normal in the circumstances to ensure that that justice does not suffer in any manner merely because an official of the CBI who is high-ranking is in a position to scuttle the proceedings.
Sir, and how do you see the probe now, the 2G probe, considering that the Supreme Court has wrapped Ranjit Sinha, told him not to interfere in the probe and recuse himself from the 2G probe?
See, the probe, as far as that is concerned, that will continue and it will reach its logical conclusion. There is no ambiguity about the continuity of the probe and its purity must be maintained, which the Supreme Court has tried to maintain. And with the absence of Ranjit Sinha, who could have possibly polluted the outcome, that has been obviated. And I think the Supreme Court has taken the steps it thought were necessary to give a clean probe.
Justice Sodhi, stay with us. We also have Dr. Karthikeyan, former CBI Director, joining us on the phone line with more. Sir, your first reaction to this. The Supreme Court has directed Ranjit Sinha to recuse himself from the 2G probe and do not interfere in the case anymore.
You see, I'm in Coimbatore. I have not followed the developments in the Supreme Court the whole day. Just going by what you have told me now, it's a very serious situation. Such an observation coming on the chief of the CBI, even though on one particular investigation, it questions the dependability and credibility. It's a very serious situation. While I'm sorry for the situation in which he is placed, I would say the most honorable course for him will be to offer his resignation from the post, even though, the Supreme Court has not asked him to resign, or the government is not asking him to resign. It's a question of moral. It's a question of moral responsibility.
Sir, Mr. Karthikeyan, good afternoon. Mr. Karthikeyan, can you hear me? This is Gaurav Sawant here, sir. This is more serious than honor. This should criminal investigation not be launched in a case like this. These are very, very serious allegations against a sitting CBI director, sir.
That's what I said. That's what I have said. Even earlier, when the matter came up, I've gone on many channels, including, Mr. Karan Thapar. I said, if the allegations are true, it's very inappropriate. It should not have been done.
Justice Sodhi also with us on the broadcast.
Justice Sodhi, the allegations are not true. But if the Supreme Court at the highest level, they have made these observations, they have come to the conclusion. So I would rather accept the verdict. And it's a serious matter, even though the Supreme Court has not asked him to resign, or the government is not asking him to resign. Just to taking moral responsibility to protect the image and credibility of the organization as a whole, he should offer to resign.
Okay, Mr. Karthikeyan, former CBI director, says that the CBI director should offer to resign. Stay with us for a moment, Mr. Karthikeyan. I also want to quickly bring in Justice Sodhi. Justice Sodhi, this is a case of 1,76,000 crore rupees. The allegation is 1,76,000 crore rupees looted from the exchequer, so to say. Should criminal investigations be launched against the CBI director, given the allegations in this case that accused came and met him?
See, It doesn't matter how many crores are involved. The question is today that the Supreme Court has asked the CBI director to recuse himself from interfering in or overseeing the 2G case. Now, this itself is an indictment, in a serious indictment as that of a head of the institution.
Yes.
But whether criminal action should be taken against him or not taken against him is still for the Supreme Court to decide after the matter is still before the Supreme Court.
Justice Sodhi, stay with me for a moment. Let's listen into Prashant Bhushan before I go to TSR Subramaniam.
सर, आज सीबीआई डायरेक्टर के एंटी रजिस्टर को लेकर जो मामला था उसे विस्तार से सुना, पिछले 3 दिनों से सुन रही थी सुप्रीम कोर्ट। फैसला दिया सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने, क्या कहा?
आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सेंटर फॉर पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन की जो एप्लीकेशन थी कि सीबीआई डायरेक्टर 2G के इन्वेस्टिगेशन से और उसके ट्रायल से इंटरफेयर कर रहा है और जो अक्यूज्ड लोग हैं उनको मदद करने की कोशिश कर रहा है, इसलिए उसको 2G के केस से हटाया जाए। उसकी आज सुनवाई आगे चली और इसमें आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने स्पेशल पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर श्री आनंद ग्रोवर को सुना। उनको एक रिपोर्ट देने को कहा गया था कि जो एप्लीकेशन में बोला गया है, जो जवाब में बोला गया है और जो और सीबीआई की फाइल्स हैं, जो नोटिंग्स हैं, उन सब को देखकर अपनी रिपोर्ट दें। आनंद ग्रोवर साहब ने 2 रिपोर्ट दी थी। एक रिपोर्ट तो इस पर थी कि विसल ब्लोअर की आइडेंटिटी पता करने का कोई औचित्य है कि नहीं, जिसने कि कॉन्फिडेंशियली सेंटर फॉर पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन को इंफॉर्मेशन दी सीबीआई डायरेक्टर के बेईमानी के बारे में। और दूसरी रिपोर्ट इस पर थी कि भाई सीबीआई डायरेक्टर ने क्या इन्वेस्टिगेशन से इंटरफेयर, इन्वेस्टिगेशन या प्रोसिक्यूशन से इंटरफेयर करने की कोशिश करी अक्यूज लोगों को मदद करने के लिए। आज आनंद ग्रोवर साहब ने दूसरी रिपोर्ट जो अपनी थी कि क्या सीबीआई डायरेक्टर ने अक्यूज लोगों को मदद करने की कोशिश करी अपने इंटरवेंशन से, अपने एक्शन से 2G केस में, उसमें उन्होंने सुप्रीम कोर्ट को बताया कि सीबीआई डायरेक्टर ने कई जगह, कई बार अक्यूज लोगों को मदद करने की कोशिश करी और स्पेशल पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर के राय के खिलाफ। उसके बाद सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सीबीआई डायरेक्टर के जो वकील थे उनका पूरा डिफेंस सुना कि वो इसके बारे में क्या कहना चाहते थे, और वो सब सुनने के बाद सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आदेश दिया है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट बहुत डिटेल्ड रीजंस नहीं देना चाहता क्योंकि उससे सीबीआई की छवि को डैमेज हो सकता है। लेकिन उन्होंने बोला ये सब सुनने के बाद वो आदेश देते हैं कि सीबीआई के डायरेक्टर रंजीत सिन्हा साहब 2G मामले में कोई हस्तक्षेप नहीं करेंगे, उनका कोई इसमें रोल नहीं होगा इन्वेस्टिगेशन या ट्रायल में, और जो हेड ऑफ द इन्वेस्टिगेशन टीम है वो उनकी जगह वो रोल प्ले करेगा। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये भी बोला, क्योंकि कल सीबीआई डायरेक्टर की तरफ से ये बोला गया था, जो कि आज अखबारों में छपा है, कि संतोष रस्तोगी जो डीआईजी हैं कि उन्होंने मुझे ये इन्फॉर्मेशन दी। मैंने कोर्ट को बता दिया था कि हालांकि मैं ये बताने की स्थिति में नहीं हूँ कि किसने मुझे इन्फॉर्मेशन दी, लेकिन मैं ये ज़रूर बता सकता हूँ कि संतोष रस्तोगी से मेरी कभी बात नहीं हुई और उन्होंने मुझे कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं दी है। तो कोर्ट ने वो रिकॉर्ड करके ये साफ कर दिया है कि संतोष रस्तोगी के ऊपर कोई लांछन नहीं लगाया जा सकता।
Is it a very unprecedented thing?
Today the Supreme Court heard the Center for Public Interest Litigation's application for asking the CBI director not to interfere with the 2G investigation or the trial on account of his various actions by which he has tried to help the accused, including the fact that he had met many of the accused persons at his residence, as his residence diary shows. In this case, today the court heard the submissions of the special public prosecutor, who had been asked to look into all the applications, replies, files, notings, and then give a report to the court. The SPP had given two reports to the court, one regarding whether it is necessary to know or whether it is desirable to know the identity of the whistleblower who had provided this information to the Center for Public Interest Litigation, on which he had said, which was an open report in which he had said that there was no need to do so. And a second report on whether the CBI director had indeed interfered in an unfair manner to help the accused persons in the 2G case. In this report, which he read out from and referred to in the course of his submissions, he had made it clear that yes, there is indeed a clear-cut case to the effect that the CBI director had interfered and had been interfering with the investigations and trial, apparently to help the accused in the case. Thereafter, the court heard the counsel for the CBI director in his defense, and after hearing all the arguments, the court passed a short order saying that they are not inclined to give detailed reasons for this order because that might damage the reputation of the CBI. But the court said that from henceforth, the CBI director, Mr. Ranjit Sinha, should not interfere or participate at all in the 2G investigations or the trial. The court also made it clear that the allegations made by Mr. Sinha's counsel yesterday, that the whistleblower who had provided information to me must have been the DIG, Mr. Rastogi, because I told the court, also gave an affidavit to the court, that while I was not prepared to name the whistleblower, I can certainly say that I had never met nor had received any information from Mr. Rastogi in this matter. Taking note of this, the court said that no aspersions should be cast on Mr. Rastogi in this matter, and that the further charge of this entire investigation and prosecution from the side of the CBI would be with the head of the CBI investigation team.
This is a major indictment. Is this not a major indictment? Let's listen in once again to Prashant Bhushan.
इस पर आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कुछ नहीं बोला है कि विजिटर्स डायरी का क्या है, लेकिन सारे तथ्यों को देखते हुए, जिसमें कि स्पेशल पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर की रिपोर्ट भी थी, जिसमें उन्होंने रिपोर्ट में लिखा था कि सीबीआई डायरेक्टर ने ये तो एडमिट करा ही हुआ है कि कई सारे 2G अक्यूज्ड उनके घर पर आए उनसे मिलने। ये सारे तथ्यों को देखते हुए और सीबीआई डायरेक्टर का रोल अंबानी वाले केस में, संतोष रस्तोगी को हटाने के रोल में और केसेस में, ये मारन एयरसेल मैक्सिस और मारन वाले केस में, ये सारे तथ्यों को देखते हुए सुप्रीम कोर्ट को ये लगा कि हाँ, ये बात सही है कि सीबीआई डायरेक्टर के खिलाफ जो सेंटर फॉर पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन ने जो एप्लीकेशन फाइल।
And joining me now for the latest is TSR Subramaniam. Let's get some perspective from the former cabinet secretary. Mr. Subramaniam, what do you make of the Supreme Court order directing the CBI director to recuse himself from 2G investigations, sir? The Supreme Court has come down heavily on the CBI director, Ranjit Sinha. The Supreme Court clearly telling Ranjit Sinha to recuse himself in this case, not giving details of why they've passed this order because that may damage the reputation of the premier investigation agency. But Ranjit Sinha should not interfere in the trial anymore is what the Supreme Court has said. On the second issue, whether the whistleblower's name should be made public, the Supreme Court has once again made it very clear after Prashant Bhushan gave an affidavit that Santosh Rastogi, DIG, was not his source. The Supreme Court has made it clear there will be no aspersions cast on Rastogi. And I want to bring in former Justice R.S. Sodhi, former Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. Justice Sodhi, the Supreme Court has strongly indicted Mr. Ranjit Sinha, even though they may have given no reasons for it, sir.
There's no doubt on that. The indictment is certainly there. After all, the head of the institution being told that he cannot interfere in an investigation which is part of his function. Surely he has been indicted, and severely at that. The Supreme Court has, however, ensured that the further investigation shall continue and its purity shall be kept intact. I'm sure the Supreme Court is aware of his continuing as a director, and that merely recusing from this particular case would be sufficient. I'm sure the Supreme Court has that in mind also.
In a situation like this, and that question that I wanted to put to you last time, we were cut short by Prashant Bhushan. In a situation like this, should criminal investigations be launched against the CBI director in a case like this, sir?
The question now is whether criminal investigation should be launched or should not be launched is still a matter before the Supreme Court itself. What it will finally do in case of the director is entirely up to the Supreme Court. Yes, you can have a criminal investigation which can be launched, since here is a clear case where there is interference in the investigation, and which is an offense in itself.
Justice Sodhi, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. I need to slip into a quick break here, but we are returning to our top story. It's a massive setback for the CBI chief, and it's an indictment of the manner in which the CBI chief was moving ahead with the investigations in the 1,76,000 crore rupee 2G spectrum scam. That remains our top focus story.